Hello there, dear viewer, and welcome to haQ. My name is Jakob. I'm your host, and you're watching a haQ episode. And in this episode, I want to do a quick review of the KORG nanoKEY Studio and tell you why I love this thing so much. You see, I recently realized that in 3 or 4 years, for as long as I've had this thing, I haven't actively been looking for a new MIDI controller. Because this thing simply provides me with everything I need as a mobile music producer. I need stuff to be light and small and fit easily into a bag, and this thing does that. The only thing really protruding from it are the knobs, and on occasion it happens that I snag the knobs onto something, which I'm annoyed by, but it's such a small little nuisance, I really don't think about it that much. Apart from being so small and portable, it's very easy to use with an iDevice because of how it doesn't need much power, and there are two ways of powering it. You can power it with two AAA batteries, and when you're doing that and using the Bluetooth MIDI connection, well, then you don't have to use any wires. I've worked like that, just an iPad and just this controller. I've even done that with my iPhone, having my iPhone in my inner pocket with headphones going up to my ears, and then I sit on the bus with this controller turned on, connected over Bluetooth, and just playing stuff while I'm in transit basically. Now, it also does USB over MIDI, and you can of course power this thing from the USB port. So if you connect it to a laptop, desktop computer, or a smart tablet, an iDevice, that works too. And you can of course use smartphone adapters, and you can of course use USB batteries. Okay, so easy to put into your bag, easy to power, and easy to connect and use. What else? Well, it's got 8 knobs, it's got a touchpad with XY controllers, and it's got 3 modes actually. It also has 8 pads for drumming, or the chord mode. I'll tell you about that in a little while. And then it's got the keyboard bed. Now, the keyboard bed feels nothing like a normal keyboard because, well, they're more like an old school keyboard for a computer. So that's something you're going to have to deal with. If you don't like these types of keys, then this controller might not be for you. But for me, it was perfect. I don't have any problems with these keys. Now, one of the best features in here is that you have 8 scenes. What do I mean? Whatever CCs you might have connected to these and whatever keys you might have connected to these pads, you can actually change all of this and save them into different scenes. You can even change the MIDI channel for all of the controllers, even for the keyboard itself. That's very neat, but here's one downside I don't like, and that is that there are no editors for this controller for iOS, for mobile. If you want to do any internal changes inside this controller, then you have to use an editor that is only available for desktop and laptop computers. And I hate dealing with it, but it's not that often that I actually open up the editor and change stuff in here now. It pretty much happened in the beginning when I got the controller, and I wanted some of the scenes to have specific controls for specific apps that didn't have MIDI learn. But if your apps have MIDI learn and you're okay with the default settings in here, you don't really need the editor. Now, I mentioned scales, and that is one of the features I absolutely love inside this MIDI controller. Yeah, it's got a scale mode with 15 scales in there. And it's not just one scale mode, there's 2 scale modes. Now, if you activate the easy scale, it basically puts the scale right down here on the white keys. I know they're black on this unit, and your scale gets laid out over these keys. So you can just play along here and you'll never play the wrong note. Now, what happens also is that it puts the black keys into chord mode. And so all of these black keys up here, which are gray on this unit, they will play different chords in that chosen scale. Now, you have 15 scales, and the way that you switch scales is by holding down Shift and then pressing on the plus scale or minus scale, and you'll see a key on the keyboard light up to show you the position in the list of the scales that you're choosing basically. Now the scale guide is different because it simply just shows you the keys in the scale, but the keyboard works normally. No chord mode in here or no weird scale on the white keys. It just shows you with lights where the notes in the scale are. Now you also have a chord pad mode, and when you're activating that, you're basically turning the pads into chord players. So they will play chords the same way that the upper row of keys on the keyboard will do when you put it into easy scale mode. Now on top of all of this, the nanoKEY Studio also has an arpeggiator mode, and you have different gate types for it. And the way that you switch gate types after you've activated the arpeggiator, well, you just tap and hold down shift and then tap on these gate minus, gate plus buttons here to go through the different gate types. Now this thing also has an internal MIDI clock, and so you can set the BPM by tapping on the shift tap button. So you can tap in the BPM yourself. Now it does have a mode for detecting whether it should be using internal clock or external clock. I was never able to get it to work, so I can't tell you how that works. Now, there is this one thing about the knobs though, and if KORG ever made a new version of the KORG nanoKEY Studio, I would buy it in an instant if they changed this thing. And it has to do with the knob resolution. The knob resolution is stepped to 64. Normally, you have controllers going from 0 to 128. In this case, it is going from 0 to 128. However, it's skipping over a step. So it's doing, is it doing even numbers? You know what? I'm going to show you with the mini monitor. So when I tweak the knob here, you can see that it's skipping and it's doing 2, 4, 8, you know, like that. So sometimes you can actually hear it, especially when sweeping filters and you've got a really high resonance and you're pulling the cutoff low and you're doing it slowly. You can hear the stepping. So that's one thing that I would love to see it changed in a future edition. So that's one con, and the other con is the fact that you have to use a desktop or laptop computer in order to change the internal settings of the nanoKEY Studio. And that's pretty much it. I have another controller from KORG, which is another one that I use a lot, and I use it with AUM and I use it with KORG Gadget, and it's the Nano Control Studio, and this one is also really good. It's got 6 scenes instead of, wait, it's got 5 scenes. 6 or 5? It's got less scenes than this one, but it's just as portable, just as easy to connect, just as easy to power, and there's loads of controlling elements on it. Now, I also want to add that if you are a KORG Gadget user, it makes a lot of sense for you to get these controllers, the Nano Control and the nanoKEY, because they work natively with KORG Gadget, which means you can now control stuff in your mixer in KORG Gadget. Everything is just mapped already inside the nanoKEY Studio with all the gadgets when you're working with it. Yeah, it's a really nice setup. In the end, I highly recommend this for mobile music producers. I love it. I absolutely love it. And KORG, if you make a new version, 2 wishlist things: increase the resolution of the knobs, and secondly, I would love it if we could have a chord record mode where you just activate that, you play a chord, and that gets saved onto a pad for the chord pad mode, because that's something I would really use a lot. Now, in the description, you can find links to the KORG nanoKEY Studio and whatever else I might have shown in this video. And yeah, so if you like this video, then why don't you hit me with a thumbs up? And if you didn't like the video, hit me with a thumbs down. If you want to support me in a financial way, then why don't you go and check out my music? There's a full list of links down in the description. And if you want to support me in any other financial ways, then I've got Patreon and PayPal. If you don't want to do any of that, then that's fine too. And as usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.